Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, inshallah today I'm going to teach you how to teach a Sirah. Before this, in the previous teaching session, I did tell you about the elements of understanding pedagogical content knowledge, PCK. It means that you not just need to know the content, at the same time you have to know the pedagogy, how to teach it. Okay, pedagogy is basically the methods of teaching, understanding and knowing the methods of teaching. Okay, when it comes to Sirah, lots of students perceive Sirah as something that is very boring, something that is very distant. Distant means something that happens a long time ago, and the events were not connected to our students' life. Okay, so the key to everything when it comes to teaching and learning, the first thing, the teacher needs to make it very meaningful to students. Okay, the questions now is, how are we going to make it meaningful when studying or teaching about something that happened a long time ago, 1,000 years ago? These are the things that you need to consider when it comes to teaching Sirah. Okay, I'm not gonna teach you the elements of Sirah because that is content. As a Islamic religious education teacher, you need to know the content very well. So there are few books that you need to master in and out. For example, the books that is written by Safir Rahman Mubarak-Furi. Okay, so basically you need to know this book inside and out. Okay, this guy, he is an Indian writer. Okay, and he wrote many books. For example, in English they call it the Seal Nectar, or in Arabic they call it Al-Rahiq Al-Makhtum. Okay, and then he wrote as well a book titled History of Makkah Al-Mukarramah and History of Madinah Al-Munawwarah, as well as the abridged Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Abridged means Ibn Kassan, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, this is an author that you need to know inside and out, and then as well as his book. Alright, there are a few books that can be considered as a higher level book, but you need to be very careful because this book needs further exploration and further study so that you could really distinguish between the arguments that is prepared by Orientalists. Okay, even though this book is not written by Orientalists, but there are lots of commentaries done by Orientalists. Okay, the book is written by Ibn Hisham, Sirah Ibn Hisham. Okay, this is a very good book as well. Fiqh Sirah is another book that I would like to suggest in order for you to understand the content, and it is written by Muhammad Al-Ghazali. Usually, I notice this book is being used a lot in a discussion within the Usrah circle. Okay, regardless of the books that you choose to teach, and you need, like what I told you before, you need to understand the content inside and out. Okay, but the question now is about related to the pedagogical elements of how to teach Sirah. Okay, the first one that you should address, that you should use when it comes to teach Sirah is, you should be able to know and understand the timeline. You should be able to use the timeline and fully utilize of the timeline. Okay, so basically by having a timeline, you could actually show to your student the growth and the development of the Sirah of Prophet Muhammad SAW. Okay, that's the first trick, how to make it your Sirah classroom more interesting, rather than giving a lecture. Because sometimes when it comes to giving a lecture, the students could not really see when the events related to Prophet Muhammad SAW happen. So when you put into a timeline, so that they could make sense of the events. For example, when was the Battle of Uhud happens, and how does it relate? How far is it uh, between the events of Isra or Mi'raj, for example? When was the events of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and how does it relate with the Fatu Makkah, and what is the gap between the Treaty Hudaybiyah and Fatu Makkah? Okay, using a timeline. The second thing that I could suggest is using maps. Gunakan peta. Okay, alright. I believe and I convinced lots of students do not know exactly or could not really differentiate between Quba, Taif, Madinah and Mecca, and where do they situated in the maps. Okay, to the extent that you can fully utilize the map by adding the elements of fiqh with the sirah as well. For example, during the Hajj season, or when it comes to teach Hajj, okay, you can use the maps and then at the same time pinpoint what are the events happening on that particular places. Muzdalifah, what are the events? Rukun Yamani, what is it, where? You understand that? Okay. Number 3 is by using a picture or image, alright? Okay, for example, in city of Mecca, okay, within the city of Mecca, there are so many stuff there, okay, or buildings that were related to the Sirah. So you could actually pinpoint these buildings to the students. Image can be used even to make a comparison between the Baitullah during the time of Abdul Muttalib, okay, the grandpa of the Muhammad SAW, during the Turk Ottomania, and nowadays. That will be very interesting. You could relate it, the historical elements of Baitullah itself during the time of Prophet Abraham alayhi salam. How did it look like? Okay, so when you have this thing, Sirah is not boring anymore, and you should be thankful with the advance of technology nowadays, to the extent that you could use Google Maps to enhance students' understandings about Sirah. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll give you the link. I wish I could show you my screen right now, but I could not because it is fixed. So I'll give you the link on the descriptions. Okay, please click on the link so that you could see how by using the map and the image actually could assist your understandings towards understanding Sirah. Okay, this is very good. Alright. So what are the other methods that you could think of? Okay, in my mind right now, I'm thinking about using quizzes. Okay, not just a normal quizzes, but quizzes with this kind of a card. This kind of a card. Okay. Where actually you have maybe hundreds of questions, hundreds of this kind of cards. You put in the box, and on the every cards actually there were questions and answers related to the Sirah. Okay, so that whenever you come into a classroom, whenever you go to see your students, you can ask them to pick up one card. Okay, of course you need to jumble up. Okay, if they get it correct, okay, and then maybe you have a bottle of sweets, a jar of sweets. Okay, this is not a jar of sweets anyway. This is a chocolate spread. Belongs to my kid. Okay, anyway, just imagine this is a jar of chocolates. Okay, so whenever they get the correct answers, you can pull up one and then give it to them. This is one of the good methods. Alright. Okay, another thing that you could use in a Sirah class is by fully utilize the crossword puzzle. Teka silang kata, crossword puzzles. Okay, in the crossword puzzle, you prepare your own crossword puzzles, and then you prepare with the terms, and then ask the students in group to answer those crossword puzzles that is related to your lesson. Okay, so I know it's going to take some of your time to prepare it, but believe me, it will be very beneficial, especially when it comes to students competing to complete the crossword puzzle. Okay.
Is crossword puzzle.
Okay, one last thing is you could actually make a field trip, but of course to make a field trip to Mecca and Madinah is so far. So perhaps if you go to do Umrah, or you could do some recording of yourself and then you could show it to your students. Perhaps if one of your students or some of your students planning to go to do Umrah or Hajj with their parents, perhaps you could ask them to collect or take pictures, collect some information related to the Sirah, so that they could share their experience and pictures to the rest of the class. For those who cannot travel, maybe you could show movie that is related to Prophet Muhammad SAW. Okay, so could you share your experience learning Sirah from your previous teachers, so that I could learn the strategies that your previous teachers had? I guess that's all for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.